Hi, I'm Steffanie Rivers, and I want justice. The police officers involved showed reckless disregard. Hello and welcome to the video version of my journal. I'm Steffanie Rivers. Come on in, kings and queens, and welcome to the conversation. I am multicasting on several platforms. You might be watching on Facebook or YouTube or even Twitter and even LinkedIn. So on whatever platform you're watching, we want to welcome you to the conversation. And I want to say thank you to my new subscribers. If you are a returning subscriber, welcome back to the conversation. And if you are new to the conversation, I know you're going to like something that you hear and you're going to want to subscribe. So be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. Here's the link in case you want to chime in on what we're going to talk about today. Now, ever since the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade a few weeks ago, it's been all that people want to talk about. And while I agree that it is mainstream newsworthy, the docket of cases that the Supreme Court reviewed in this session included at least two more cases that deserve our attention, especially if you are Black and living in America. One of those cases has to do with your Miranda rights, and the other case is pertaining to your right to bear arms if you live in New York State. So let's start with Miranda rights. Now, even if you've never been arrested, you probably have seen a movie, you've seen it on TV, that when a person is arrested, the arresting officer says you have the right to remain silent. What you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney. If you can't afford one, one will be appointed to you. Something like that are the Miranda rights. That was just off the top of my head, and I've never been arrested. I've seen it on TV and stuff. So that's what I'm saying. Most of us kind of know what Miranda rights are. Miranda rights are attached to the Fifth Amendment and the Sixth Amendment to the Constitution. And when someone says, I plead the Fifth, that means they don't want to talk. They don't want to speak because they might incriminate themselves by speaking. So I plead the Fifth. A lot of us have said that and really didn't know what we were saying, but that's what we were saying. We were pleading the Fifth, our Fifth Amendment right to be silent. And so that is connected to our Miranda rights. Also attached to the Miranda rights are your Sixth Amendment right, in the Constitution. That is the right to an attorney. So for the past 50 years or so, it's been the arresting officer's duty to advise the person being arrested of their Miranda rights, to tell you that you have the right to remain silent and that you have the right to an attorney. And if they don't Mirandize you, as it's the term, if they don't Mirandize you, then all that you said during your statement to the cops could get thrown out of court if your case makes it that far, or the case might be dismissed. At least that's what they say on TV. Well, my guest today is going to help explain and clarify something, if I said something wrong. But last month, the U.S. Supreme Court decided that an arresting officer can no longer be held liable if they don't Mirandize you. They can arrest you, they can start questioning you without advising you that you don't have to make a statement to them. And if that happens, you no longer have the right to sue that officer, or at least sue the department that that officer is attached to. So, here to talk to us today is my guest, Dwayne Gibson. He is a retired FBI agent. And we want to say welcome to the show and thanks for taking out your time, Mr. Gibson.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Miss Rivers. Always a pleasure.
So said a lot before I brought you in, but I will say that you are retired, and you had 30 years or over at least 30 years of law enforcement experience. And so, do you want to clarify anything that I said leading up to bringing you into the show, as far as what Miranda rights are and how they are supposed to be told to you by the arresting officer?
I mean, you did a very nice synopsis. Basically, if I remember, the case goes back to, I think it's about 1967. Gentleman is arrested. It goes through the state courts, appellate courts, and gets to the Supreme Courts, which in turn ends up, that's why it's called Miranda. That was his last name. I can't remember his first name, but that's why it's called Miranda Rights. They just took him in. The old, if you want to call it that, format was take somebody in a room, turn the lights on them, and just browbeat them until they told you what you wanted to hear, whether it was the truth or was a made up confession. It worked then. But then the courts actually took a look at it. Remember, that's during the civil rights era, where everybody's taking a look at everything that's been done wrong to everybody. And they said, you really should tell people what their rights are, which are very simple. I'm looking at an old Miranda warning that I used to carry in my wallet. The first one is, before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. Your second question statement we read off would be, you have the right to remain silent, which is your Fifth Amendment right, as Miss Rivers pointed out. And the third one is, most importantly, right after number two, anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. So if you say something that's negative, that's going to hurt you, it's going to show up in court. If you say something that's going to help you, there's no mandate for the law enforcement official to turn it over. Even though in my old agency, we turned everything over because it was supposed to be in a transparent pass of information from the investigator to the prosecutor, which in turn went to the defense attorney to ensure that you got a fair trial. As it was pointed out by Ms. Rivers earlier, that decision by the Supreme Court to allow law enforcement officials to overlook, I'm going to be polite when I say this, reading someone their Miranda rights. I think it's wrong and inappropriate. Now, I can only speak from my experience as a federal agent. Like I said, I found this old card. We all carried them. And basically, we had a card in my agency. We had documents that were drawn up that was in English, Spanish, Chinese, every language. So no matter who you dealt with, when it came time to arrest them and you wanted to question them, it came out, you and your partner signed it, you pass it over to the subject. If they decide to sign it, cool. If they decide they didn't want to sign it, you would sign what they said. If they said they wanted to talk, it was all good and dandy, because when you go back to court, Mr. Jones, is that your signature? Yes. It's hard to negate that, my opinion, by virtue of giving this window of opportunity for law enforcement to do shoddy work. It's very bad for everybody across the board, specifically in our community. Ethnic communities across the country are going to be the beneficiaries, if you want to call it that, of being abused. Because, you have a less than scrupulous law enforcement official arresting me. I'll use myself as an example. Arrest me, says I'm under arrest for, breaking and entering, car theft. Okay, cool. You take me in. I'm in handcuffs. You take me to your office. I'm expected to be Mirandized. And if you come in here and start talking to me, first thing I'm going to say is, I don't want to talk to you, my Fifth Amendment rights, and I want an attorney. At that point, I'm going to lean back, probably going to curl up in a ball, put my hands in my armpits, and go to sleep on the floor. I'm not going to touch anything you give me. I'm not going to talk to you again. You're going to have to take me out of there, book me, put me in a holding cell.
Now,
Yes, I'm sorry.
well, no, well, so I want to ask this question or make this statement. So you know that, and I know that, but there are a lot of people who are going to look at this conversation and they're going to say, I already know that, but millions of people, can you attest to this? Millions of people end up getting caught up in the fact that, well, I'm innocent. So whatever I say can't put me in prison because I'm innocent. And they think being innocent is going to save them. What do you think about
No, I'm gonna go back. Miranda warnings again. Number one, before we ask you any questions, you must understand your rights. Number two, all important one, you have the right to remain silent. You can be guilty. You can be innocent as the day is long as a newborn baby. If you don't open your mouth, your attorney doesn't have to try and undo anything that you say. Um, Point of fact, if you go on YouTube, look up Pot Brothers at Law. They came out a few years ago when they were making the weed industry was becoming legalized. They're out of California. They give very good advice about how to deal with the police. They cater their YouTubes. They're older. They cater them towards weed arrests
that?
and trouble. They're applicable to any time you're arrested. And they tell everybody, if you're arrested, okay, don't argue, don't say anything. Go along with what the officer says. The officer says, turn around, put your hands behind your back. Turn around, put your hands behind your back. When they start talking to you, give them your name, your true name. Don't lie. If you give them a false name, that's a charge you'll catch. Give them your true name, your true date of birth, and where you live at. At that point, you're under no obligation to talk to them anymore. If they continue to talk to you, you say, I am invoking my Fifth Amendment right, and I would like to speak to an attorney. Don't say a word. Don't don't do anything. Just stand there, sit there, and look at them. If they keep talking, keep saying the same thing over and over and over. Do not recant anything. My name is Dwayne Gibson. My date of birth is ABCD. I am invoking my fifth constitutional amendment right, and I would like to speak to an attorney.
And so that speaks to, a lot of people, they say I want to my attorney to be present, but they keep talking, or they don't say I want an attorney and they keep talking, and then at some point they realize, oh my god, I've said too much. And then they might have incriminated themselves by what they said, and now the best attorney in the world can't get you out of what you said. Is that something that is that like cops 101, where they try to like put you in a trick bag and try to keep you talking because they know eventually you're going to say something that is going to be used against you?
It's just common nature. We know, everybody knows. Think about somebody you don't like, you want to have a conversation with. They may not want to talk to you initially. You start talking to them, eventually, if they don't understand that they don't want to talk to you and shut you down, you're going to win eventually. It's not cop 101 if you want to call it 101, but we know, everybody knows. Okay, first of all, they're authority figures. So for a lot of people, that's intimidating. They know where the law or where the line is drawn. They know if they walk up to the line, they're not going to be sanctioned. Well, now with that recent ruling we're talking about, that line has been blurred. So they can walk over that line, throw the line out the window. And depending on the state, the jurisdiction, the judge, all those variables that we don't control, the judge may sanction them. The judge may say, well, you should have known better. There's enough TVs. You watch SUV and all those other TV shows, correct? Which they do give valid information. But it's incumbent upon you as a citizen. I know the rule says innocent until proven guilty. But if you start running your mouth, you will incriminate yourself at some point in time. And like I said a few minutes ago, once you say something incriminate, that ink pen is going high speed. They're writing down everything you said. They ain't gonna say nothing about I was walking down the street, minding my business, having a soda. That part doesn't count. But the part where you say something negative, that's going right into the report. That's going to be handed over to an attorney on the prosecutor side. That's going to come, well, Mr. Gibson, didn't you say this? And as you said, your attorney's going to go, it's kind of hard to negate that. You said it. It's called an utterance. They're not going to solicit it from you. That's what my take on this recent ruling is going to allow you to sit there and hang yourself and give them a free pass for shoddy police work, which is bad for everybody. Because if you got good cops doing it the right way, there's always, like in economics, there's always that 5% that are going to take advantage of the rule system to fit their needs. Who pays for that mistake? The good guys. I'm not saying they're good or bad, but I'll just use that euphemism. Guys that do it the right way, the long way, are going to be penalized because of guys that take the shortcuts just to get a confession, prosecution on their record into the court system.
So why do you think the Supreme Court even was looking at Miranda rights? I mean, why would they go and say, oh, well, now a law officer is not held liable? That's like, it's like, why wouldn't, if he's supposed to tell us something and he doesn't, why wouldn't you allow him to be held liable for that?
Unfortunately, my take, our nation, country, whatever term you want to put on it, is in a extreme denial of reality. Excuse me. As the year 2042, 2040 comes up, the true blending, browning of this nation is becoming more and more apparent to the nation. If you look at all the rules that we're talking about today, they came into effect almost 60 years ago when the nation realized that, you know something, we have to start moving to a more neutral position to try and help everybody, not just the majority. If you take my opinion, Roe versus Wade, this one, they're all to benefit a dying majority. If you go back and look at the 2020 census, had numerous, I say, questions put in there to dissuade people of color, minorities, whatever term you want, to not take it. What most people don't realize, when you do the census every 10 years, it determines not only just how many people go to the Senate, to the House of Representatives in the state and the federal level, it determines what social services are available to the nation in general. And as the current, as they say, dying majority is losing power and numbers, they realize people of melanin, whether they're Black, brown, Middle Eastern, or whatever, are becoming more dominant. That's my take on why we are slowly they are doing everything they can to roll back to Jim Crow and beyond. When I first retired, almost 6.5 years ago, I had a lot of free time. So I started reading old white papers from Johns Hopkins, MIT, and a bunch about sociology matters and a bunch of things that kind of predicted Donald Trump's run in 2016 and where we're at today. That as the majority dies, the few that are in positions are going to do everything they can to roll back and limit any person of color, melanin, whatever term is comfortable to you, from becoming powerful and shifting the power. I can't prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. I can only speak on my tenure in this nation, my time on this planet. I agree with what I said. Some people will not. But it's incumbent upon us and those that may not look like us that are trying to do the right thing to stop this rollback agenda. It is what it is. Unfortunately, we're stuck at a point, a cliff. We either fight back or we have a French Revolution or we fall off the cliff. I don't know. Please don't say I'm being an anarchist. I'm not advocating any violence. I know some people may. I want to make sure people understand. I'm not advocating that. I'm speaking historically. If you look at empires when they fall, I'll use the French Empire. Marie Antoinette, I think her famous saying was, "Let them eat cake." I think she ended up getting her head cut off when it was all said and done, because you had the 1%er, as we call them here. They had all the money. They could care less about the lower end. And if you look at the similarities between us today and the French Revolution, we're pretty much in the same boat. Every empire lasts maybe 250 years. America's past 250 years being dominant. So we're at a point, in my opinion again, those in power need to get with the party line and understand you had your chance. There's a whole new breed coming in. You can either go along peacefully or you can cause as much strife as you want. which is my personal opinion, not worthy of a nation that has led the world since I've been around.
Well, I mean, yes, going to the census, I don't, when I say we, I know people who read and are try to be informed realize that the Trump administration tried to keep people from, they shortened the amount of time that you could do the census, and they try to keep people from, they only went to certain neighborhoods, and so they tried to dictate or try to control the numbers for the census. One, and because it's been said by 2040 that there'll be more, the majority population will be non-white. And so then, of course, that leads into Roe versus Wade. They're trying to stop women from having abortions because they want more white babies to be born to try to keep control. So I'm with you on that, and and there are a lot of people who think that and have said that, and so let's go back to the Miranda rights. To me, is feeling like law enforcement officers are being given more. They're giving them more control, but less responsibility for what it is that they do with that control. And it's like, akin to qualified immunity. You're supposed to do something. You're supposed to, if we're giving you all this status, you should be held accountable when you don't do something right. It's feeling like you can stop people, you can question them, you can get a no-knock search warrant, you can go, into people's houses. You didn't do your homework, you in the wrong house. The person you claim that you after don't even live there. If they do live there, they're not there. Did you do your, what's that called when you sit outside and make sure the person, did you do all that before you burst in and start? And then when the person uses their Second Amendment rights to defend their home, you shoot them and kill them, and then you don't even get held responsible. So it seems like, Mr. Gibson, that even though Miranda rights are still exist, that it's the onus is going to be on the individual, people in, for me to know my rights, for you to know your rights. It seems like you have to take a law 101 class before you step outside, just to make sure that you know your rights. Because like you asked me before we got on, you said, do you know Texas Penal Code 3802? And I don't, but I didn't know what it was, but I do understand that under certain circumstances, I don't have to show my identification if I'm stopped. But a lot of people, and then that goes to, illegal searching of a vehicle. Some law enforcement officers, they come across like, oh, we just looking for so and so. You don't mind if I search your car, do you? Like, but that's a big, huge thing. Hell no, you can't search my vehicle without a search warrant. But they get you like so in like, oh yeah, I just want to participate. I just want to, cooperate, when you're giving up your rights.
True. Never consent to a car search.
Never consent to a car search.
If they ask, okay, you got to go back to the Supreme Court. They haven't messed this up yet. This comes out, I can't remember the case law yet. This goes back to when, let's say I pull you over, I'm giving you a speeding ticket. I can only extend that interaction as long as it takes me to write a ticket. Now, what will happen is they're going fishing. Can I search your car? No. I'm calling the dog. Okay, that gives them about 10 to 15 minutes max time to get that dog to your location. What will happen is they'll string you out there for 45 minutes. Mm-hmm. Now, me personally, I'd be on the phone calling 911, because every time you call 911, it's recorded and there's a log entry made about what's going on. You can ask for, because you can ask them on, I'll get you a supervisor eventually. Call 911. You can, hey, I am ABCD. I've been pulled over by trooper, whether it's state trooper, local, state, officer so-and-so. I am located at this location. He's issuing me a speeding ticket. He started 25 minutes ago. Can I have an immediate response by a supervisor? Something is wrong with this officer abusing my rights. Never voluntarily let him search your car. Now, if they say they're going to get a dog, it's been proven all dogs aren't competent. And I'm not saying because I don't know, but some dog handlers have been accused of causing false alerts by their dog by moving towards the car, and the dog is going to, you got to remember, the dog lives with the handler. So who has a nice relationship, the dog and the handler? I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally, but there has been case laws where it's been found dogs are not very competent and handlers have promoted false positive hits, and they go through the car, there's nothing there, but they inconvenience a person for an hour and a half for no reason. So never give up your right to not have your car searched. If they ask, say no. You don't have to argue. You say, just like I said, no, I'm not interested. No, thank you. And then you always remember, I forgot to bring this up earlier. When they finish, am I being detained or am I free to go? You're asking them about your rights when you say that to someone. Now, the court has upheld if I'm giving you a ticket, as I use that as an example. As long as I'm giving you that ticket, you are legally detained. Now, and they put a time frame. The average ticket doesn't take 30 minutes to write. If I'm pulling you over for going 60 and a 45, okay, I go back to my car, enter the data, get the ticket together. Let's say it takes 10 minutes. Okay, I come back up to the car, Ms. Rivers, here's your ticket, sign this line. This does not provide an admission of guilt, just says you accept the charges, then we'll take care of them in the near future. Can I search your car? No. You just answer very politely, no. And am I being detained or am I free to go? But explaining that to some people does not go over well. They want to argue their case on the street with a law enforcement official. You automatically lose because when you get to court, you're going to be portrayed as a hostile individual that didn't like the fact that you were getting a ticket and you took out negative position against them as a quote unquote law enforcement official for the state, an agent for the state. I'm trying to think, something else I wanted to come back to. Oh, 38.02. I almost forgot. That's a good one. Everyone look it up. It's very simple. When you're walking down the street, I'll use you again, Ms. Rivers, I apologize. Excuse me, ma'am, can I talk to you for a minute? Actually, you can say, no, I'm not interested. Because it's a consensual conversation. As a cop walks up to you, you're minding your own business walking down the street. Well, you fit the description. Okay. You let them talk. You don't say nothing. Matter of fact, and you ask them, can I have the incident number while they're messing with you? That usually persuades most of them to leave you alone. Can I have the incident number? Just go along with them. What's your name? I don't have to provide my name. This is Texas. Texas always say, do you understand Texas Penal Code 38.02? I don't have to provide my name. And then you say my famous statement that if you go back, look at the brothers at POP. Yeah, what is it? POP Brothers at Law. They give you a whole lot of good information. You just keep that. It's pretty applicable across the country. Am I being detained or am I free to go?
Remember those words. Detained or am I free to go?
Yep. If I'm being detained, they'll say, I'm investigating a crime. Okay. I don't have to help you. That's law. You don't have to tell them, man. You say, okay, well, I'm not giving you my name unless you're arresting me. And they'll say, that's hindrance. I say, no, it's not. That's a secondary charge. You have to have a primary charge. It's always, are you stopping me in the commission just completed or am I about to commit a crime? They'll say suspicion. Is that a misdemeanor or felony? You can ask those questions because suspicion is suspicion. It is not a crime. Oh, you're walking down the street with a hoodie on. Okay, I want to walk down the street with a hoodie on. Is there a problem? No. They will attempt to get you, like you went back earlier, they'll keep talking to you. Stop talking to them. You look like a suspicious person. Okay. Is that a felony or is that a misdemeanor? Just they want to bait you into being aggressive. Just say, no, I'm not interested in having this conversation. And Is this a consensual conversation? Okay, bye.
Well, some people feel as if remaining silent during police questioning or interrogation, whatever we want to call it, is a sign of guilt. Or they think refusing to speak to a police officer without, if you say, well, I don't want to talk without my attorney, they think that's a sign that's an act of a guilty person. And I've even seen shows, what's the shows on this certain channel, where they have a lot of shows about police activity. They've even said, if you ask for an attorney, that automatically signals to a police officer that you're guilty. Is
So
that so?
that's on them. It's not on you. Remember, it's guilty till proven innocent. Now, a lot of law enforcement are cynical. Do they have right to be? Yeah, if you work murders, some violent crimes, most definitely. But the bottom line, if they pull me down to Parker Center right now, I'm not talking to you. I want an attorney. I don't care what you think. Because as we said earlier, the moment you start talking, you start giving away your rights. And the more you give away, the easier it is for them to send you to jail. Prime example. I don't like using this one. The 5 young men that were accused of the rape in New York that Donald Trump to this day seems to think they should be sentenced to death, they did not do the crime. Even after they were proven not to do the crime, he still has that opinion. Oh, they're guilty. The guy that came when they finally caught him was like 10, 12 years later.
Central Park 5.
Central Park 5
Right.
is now an attorney. They went in, what was it? One of them went in with his buddy just so he'd have somebody to lean on. They both ended up in jail. Because no one, but I guess I was lucky as a kid. Most of my mentors in church were law enforcement officials. They didn't brag about it, but we used to have conversations, weekly meetings during youth, whatever we'd have conversations. I didn't realize what they were telling me at the time because I was too dumb. But they were basically saying, don't say nothing. Keep your mouth shut. But the more you talk, the easier it is for them to violate your rights, and it's harder for your attorney to turn back the clock once the bell has been rung, if you catch that metaphor. It's Fifth Amendment. Remains, even if you're innocent, I don't care what the cop thinks. Just say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment right, and I would like to see my attorney. And you just sit there. You look at them, you look at them, and you look at them. Because when your attorney eventually shows up, it may take 24 hours. If you have to wait for one to be appointed to you, 36 hours. If you have one on retainer, you should have been calling them, well, somebody in your family should call them. But don't speak, don't say anything. Oh, most importantly, if you watch those police shows like First 48, they already show you the tricks. They'll put you in a room, but before they get there, occasionally show where they prep the room. They go through, they sterilize the room. Usually it's a steel desk or some hard material that's easy to get fingerprints off of. They bring in a bottle of water. It's unopened, and they bring in, they have on gloves. I wonder why they have on search gloves. Everything is clean, is sanitized. You come in there, you want a water? You want a soda? The guy, when you get there sitting, you don't know the guy came in with gloves on, sat it down. And when you finish, don't smoke cigarettes. Don't touch anything. I don't want to talk. Put your arms in your armpit. I have nothing to say to you on my Fifth Amendment right, and I'd like to speak to an attorney. I don't care if you're dying of thirst. Don't touch the water bottle. Don't touch the cocaine. Because it's law. Once you finish drinking, like I'm doing, you put it down. They take you out. They'll come back in with gloves, DNA, fingerprints. Whether or not you did that crime that they're looking for, now I'm not saying you're a criminal, but if you haven't done something in the past, your fingerprints might be floating around in the system. So let's say they pulled you in for, I don't know, assault this morning. You didn't do the assault. But a year ago, you stole a car. Guess what's going to happen when they run those fingerprints? I mean, they're going to get your fingerprints if they arrest you. But if they aren't arresting you, you gave them your fingerprints free of charge. You can't negate that when you get to court. Your DNA sample, not that I'm saying anybody should be a rapist, but DNA kits stick around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So
So
Murder
let me
has no expectations.
let me ask you this one because I've often thought this, and it might be the same. You know how when, let's say, someone was a victim of a rape, and then they come to you, Dwayne, and say, "We want to clear your name, Dwayne. That's all we want to do. So we want you to submit to a DNA test."
Nope.
So
Nope. I'm not giving my DNA.
and they're like, "Look, Dwayne, if you didn't do it, what's the problem? Because your stuff is gonna be, they're gonna hold it in case of something in the future, so they're gonna have it on file, right?"
It'll always be there. Once you give it up, it's like, remember, what was it? Remember the fad was several years ago? Still, I want to find my lineage, those DNA
Uh-huh.
1, 2, 3s. If you
Yeah, and
read
they
the
went
fine
back and
print,
found the rapist from 20 years ago.
there's my case. If you read the fine print, I used to talk to friends, don't do that. There's fine print in there. Most people don't read the fine print. When you gave that sample, you swabbed your mouth, put it in that tube, you sent it to them, you relinquished all ownership of that DNA sample. So they can do
Wow.
whatever they want with it. Yes, they're going to do they've even said when we do those DNA historical things, they just mean somebody in your family may have been in this part of Africa or this part of Europe. It cannot define exactly where you came from because if I remember the numbers, when you go back every set of grandparents, the numerical number is 28. So think about it. You go back 2 generations, you're up to 56. As you keep going back, the number keeps going up by 28 every time. So think about it. You go back 10 generations. How easy is it to prove where you came from outside of, okay, you had somebody who was from East Congo, uh, the Sudan. That's all they can tell you. They can't tell you where you came from. But the fine print, like I said, this DNA, we can do whatever we want with it. If somebody subpoenas it, we'll turn it over. If we want to do some studies with it, you can't complain. Matter of fact, how many of us remember? I can't remember her name, but her DNA for health issues, a sister, is the crux of that most of
Oh.
our medical history is built on, and that was taken from her over what 120 years ago.
I just saw
Yes.
that documentary title, and
Right.
I know what you're talking about, and
Yeah.
because uh, Oprah Winfrey played her in the movie or the
Yeah.
yeah. Um,
Her DNA, her medical breakdown, whatever term you want to use, is the basis for most of our medical knowledge. Not even to go a little deeper to the sadistic doctor that used women of color to understand gynecology and everything else without medication. That's a different story.
I'm with you. I understand. So let's turn to now. Unless you want to add something else, let's turn to the other case the Supreme Court decided on pertaining to the Second Amendment rights to bear arms. And I don't know how familiar you are with New York's laws, but we know in some states, and in this case, New York State, they have gun laws that forbid anyone in the state from carrying a weapon outside of their home. But you can turn to YouTube or wherever and see, people having shootouts in daylight in New York all the time. So apparently all the criminals have the weapons, but they want the law-abiding people to stay at home with their guns. But the Supreme Court last month, they decided that state law forbidding people to come outside with your weapon outside of your home was a violation or in conflict with their rights. And so their right to bear arms. And so now law officers have the burden of proof, is it, for saying that someone is carrying a firearm with illegal intent. Are you familiar with that?
Well, that's doctrine. That's all. Well, okay. Let's get back to New York. Let's address New York first. New York, Chicago, D.C., all those. California. California's kind of different, but I'm gonna go with the old states 120 years ago. New York, Chicago, D.C. What was going on in 1920? Prohibition. Mobsters came of age in America. They are the reason those. I'll just use Chicago and New York. That was that was where their two home spots for doing criminal activity. So, in the infinite wisdom of the political machines there, they decided to shut down all firearms. That way, in a utopia, only the bad guys would have guns. It ran fine and dandy until we saw that good guys gave up their guns, bad guys kept their guns. Now, getting back to the ruling, turning over, that's on the right side of our political leanings, which is now in the Supreme Court heavily, for better choice of words. So they decided that New York, if you look back, whenever they would, it's kind of like I can use Maryland. I'm a little bit more familiar with Maryland. You had to have a definitive reason that you could take in and say why you had to have a concealed carry license. Basically, you were a banker, precious gems, things of that nature. They would give it to you. But guess who worked in those fields and who didn't work in those fields? So if you look at New York, it is primarily melanin based now. Now, my take, is it a good thing? Yes and no. We live in a society now that does not value human life for what it's worth. We'd much rather just, for whatever term, you offended me. I'll use the old joke from Spike Lee, do the right thing. Bumped into, what was it, Dove Man sneakers and a fight. No, it was, what's his face? The other guy who played in the other movie. But you bumped into a whole fight broke out. Remember, over the sneakers? Tore up the neighborhood, right?
Right.
We are today. Now, in theory, having more guns on the street should make us safer. We live in a society that people don't have common sense, in my opinion. I'd much rather fight with you, shoot you, stab you for a minor inconvenience than to actually have a conversation. We don't talk to each other anymore.
So you're saying that's the mentality these days. They'd much rather fight you, stab you. I'm like, Dwayne, you'd rather stab somebody, but you mean
no, I wouldn't. No, I'm not talking about us.
Right,
I'm talking about the window that's being opened up as we have opened up 2A to the mass majority. The problem, here's my take on New York. Let me get back on track. I'm sorry, I went a little far.
Oh, that's okay.
New York had a rule that basically you had to go in. Donald Trump is a prime example. He had a concealed carry license. Did he meet all the qualifications?
Probably not.
Oh, he did. He had one. He used to brag about it. Everybody with money in New York had a concealed carry license. That's part of the reason people were complaining is that why do I have to have a significant ruling or in my favor to get a license when, it's been proven that you had these privileged, they walked in, they knew somebody, signed the paper and got their license. Now, even as that ruling has been pushed back down in New York, they now have, if you want to get a concealed license, you have to turn over all your information for your social media so we can go back and look for 2 years. So that's the way they're going to get around it for the time being until it ends up back in the court system because you are not following what the court said. You are hindering our ability as a human being to partake of our Second Amendment right in New York. They're doing workarounds. They're doing everything they can. Okay, you want it. The Supreme Court says we have to give you a concealed license. All right. For us to consider and start your paperwork, you have to turn over your social media accounts so we can review them for the last 2 years. What does that show? Okay, let's say, like in economics, 5% of the people are going to have detrimental stuff in their social media. The average person is like me. You got stuff about go eat, go play basketball, playing with your kids, with your dog, going traveling. Does that show you I have any ill intent? No. 5% are going to be rather radical. Okay, that's 5% you cut out. But nothing stops anybody from being sane on Sunday at, what we got here, 6:50, and being insane Monday morning at 7 a.m. Anything can happen in 12 hours. Is it logical? Yes and no. It's logical from the political side, from the real side, human side, it's not. That's New York. And if you notice, like I said at the beginning, New York, Chicago, California have some of the most stringent gun laws. Where do most of the shootouts happen at? New York has big shootouts. Chicago is constantly in the news.
Exactly. That's my whole point, right?
Constantly chasing street gangs, constantly shooting each other. DC, my home state of Baltimore. They want to limit a good guy from having a gun, but good guys follow the law. Bad guys don't care. They steal, take whatever they want. They don't worry about going to prison because it's home to them. But, I think is that a fair assessment of your question, or do I need to redirect it?
No, yeah, it's a fair assessment of my question. So, um, I think that a lot of people who live in New York State are they have to look at the new rules and see how it can positively affect them or allow them to have more Second Amendment right freedoms with training, of course, with knowing the laws, of course, because in Texas, it's like it's either too strict or too lax, the middle ground. It's like nobody wants to be in the middle, or at least the way they dictate the law. I just don't think, and I've had this conversation with someone who believed that even if that they think that having being required to get a license to carry doesn't necessarily make you a better shooter. And I think you've even said that, because just because you can qualify enough to go through the class doesn't mean you're proficient at shooting. But I would think that if you don't have to have a license, then you're not even going to try to go to a class and learn anything, because you didn't have to go through anything to get the license. At least if you had to go through a step or two to get the license, you might consider, maybe I need to know more about this thing that might kill somebody, just like driving a vehicle, in my opinion.
Wow. You went right for September 1st, didn't you? Open carry in the state of Texas. I
Yes.
remember that day well, because about a week later, I was talking to my daughter about it about a week or two ago. About a week or two later, I was at AAA getting a piece of paperwork I needed notarized. It was like about a week or two after September 1st when it went live last year. I'm walking back to my car, doing what I always do, situational awareness, looking around, seeing if there's anything I should be wary of, knowing where my car is, just scanning the neighborhood. I see young black male stepping out of his car. He's about 6 foot, probably about 280, sweatpants hanging off his tail end. Now, that didn't alert me anything. What did alert me, remember, it's 2 weeks after open carry. He's wearing a shoulder holster rig with his gun under one arm and this. The whole time he's getting out of his car, I'm still walking slowly. I slow my walk as I see him. He's spending time trying to pull his pants up. Now, in my mind, I revert back to who I used to be. I'm thinking like a criminal for 5 seconds. Okay, if I wanted that gun, what do I have to do? Take the gun out of my pocket, which out of my holster I was wearing that day, run up behind him because he's so busy trying to pull his pants up. Remember, I said they're down under his buttocks. So he's trying to pull his sweatpants up, and he's exercising his Second Amendment. I don't have a problem with that. And it was just, and my initial intent was to have a conversation with him. But then when we locked eyes, he gave me the look of, what are you looking at? I was like, okay, we're done. There's not going to be a conversation. My intent was to say, let me talk to you for a second, bro. You're a target, not just for the criminals, but for law enforcement, just by your appearance. I understand 2A says you can wear your gun out running around, but if you're going to do that, make sure you know what you're doing. You stepped out of your car. You're fiddling with your pants. You don't see what's going on. You don't know anybody that's behind you off to your side. I'm walking, and I changed my whole vector to get away from it. Had a conversation in a group about this, and it was a long argument. And it was like, if I was a criminal, he'd have been on the ground, I'd have had his gun, and that would have been it. Now, I'm not saying he should have been shot, but he'd have been hit in the head. I'd have taken his gun. He wouldn't have known what went on because a lack of situational awareness, enjoying his Second Amendment right. I'm not saying it was wrong, but if you're going to do such things, I recommend you get some training, understanding situational awareness, and don't make it obvious.
Right.
And like, as you noted, I mean, yeah, I've said it probably when we're out at the range talking. Okay, you got your CHL. What does that mean? That means you shot 5-round strings at very controlled and short distances. Okay, I could probably teach one of my nieces or nephews at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, 12 years old to do that in 20 minutes. Does that mean they're capable of carrying a gun? No. You need to go find some. I'm sorry.
I said,
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I can teach you how to shoot. That's the easiest thing in eating. I can teach you how to pick a gun up, hit the target. We're done. But it's the things that go along with it, understanding how your weapon works. And most importantly, I think I brought it up last time we were at the range. When you pull the trigger, do you have $60,000 available in the event you make a mistake? Or even if you don't make a mistake, you're going to get sued. If you don't understand the ramifications of pulling the trigger, when some of my old compatriots show up that wear blue, Mr. Gibson, put your hands behind your back. Why? There is an ordinance in every city, community you live in. Discharging a firearm within the city limits is an arrestable offense.
Right. So be prepared to get arrested, even if turns out that you were going to be, those charges will be dropped. It's going to be some time in between that you're going to need an attorney and defense and all of that.
Yes, and most people don't think of, but okay, he breaks into your house. Oh, excuse me, whoever it is, I shouldn't say he. They break into your home. You, as you need, it's always been you can defend your home. You're in your house. You open up on them with a shotgun. Body's down. You call the police. The police show up. Depending on who shows up, depends on whether or not you go to jail or not. If they talk to you and they get the information they want, okay. If they're being mean-spirited, you're going to jail. Because the answer will be you discharge a firearm within the city limits. Someone died in the occurrence. I'm going to turn it over to the district attorney to make a decision whether or not you should go home tonight. So you can be arrested. You can be taken downtown. Oh, and don't forget, your weapon will be seized. There is no getting around that. If they arrest you, they will seize your weapon. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to be taken. They're going to take it down to their firearms specialist. They're going to do an examination. Did you make any changes for, let's say it's a standard Glock. Okay, I got Mr. Gibson's gun here. What changes did he make? Okay, he made night sights. That's okay. Did he do anything to the trigger? Did he do it? There's a whole bunch of stuff that people get done to their weapons to make them shoot faster and be running guns. That doesn't look good in court if you use it. And the fact that you might lose your gun, you got to think twice before you pull the trigger. A lot of people don't think about that when you have that conversation. Do you carry firearms insurance? Why? And I always say, do you have $60,000 in your pocket ready to go at any moment?
So this is leading me to the last section of our conversation.
Okay.
One that we talked about situational awareness. I want to show you a video and get your response on it. Two, that it depends on who shows up in case if you do discharge your firearm. Depends on who shows up. Now, my shooting coach said to me, if you discharge your weapon, you need to be able to justify what you did to an old white man, 75-year-old white man, aka the judge, because that's who is going to determine what happens to you. And so all these things, play into what, like the justice system, criminal justice system, how some people get charged with certain things, other people get charged with other things. So I'm going to share this video and then let me see if I need to. Okay, so I want to show you this video. It happened in Cherokee County, Georgia. And I just want to get your take on it. The video was taken by just random people in a vehicle who happen to have video going. I'm like, I need to get me a video in my vehicle. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, and then the video was shown on Dr. Rashad Ritchie's show. And so we're going to watch maybe 2 minutes of the video just so I can get your response as a retired federal agent. So let me go to this video and see. Okay, I'm going to play it.
This guy ends up shooting point blank at a family. Okay, here it is.
I thought we had to go find myself to jail by now. Yeah, I don't send myself to jail, don't I? Oh my god! What is it?
put up this evil SOB who decided to shoot at this family. Okay. This is being considered an extreme case of road rage. I think it's attempted murder. He has not been charged with that. His name is Wade McEwen, 61 years of age. He shot at least 14 rounds in another car in an act of road rage. What is he accused of? He's accused of blocking victim Jason Daxon, who's 25, from passing him several times. The 61-year-old then opened fire on the younger man, deputy said. Let's go to a picture of Jason. All right. Mr. Jason Daxon was shot twice by this person, once in the arm and once in the back. During the exchange, it was taken to a local hospital. He is expected to survive, but had to undergo multiple surgeries. All right. Now, the shooter was reportedly charged with aggravated assault, reckless conduct, and reckless driving. Did you see the video I saw? You saw the video, right? Now, this is in Cherokee County. It's a good old boy county in the state of Georgia. He was charged. Let me read the charge docket one more time.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there and take out. I'll just, in case we want to play it one more time. But essentially, Dwayne, you see that video, and if someone wants to go back and look at it, just look up. You can look up Rashad Ritchie, the Undisputed Show, and talking about Cherokee County. And so essentially, I believe that had the man who shot at the vehicle 14 times injured another person, had he been a black man, he would have been charged with attempted murder. But he's a white man, so he's charged with assault. But a black man will get life. They'll give a black man life for doing some misdemeanor type stuff. Life in prison over a non-violent offense. But this person who did this 14 shooting in the middle of the street, anybody could have been killed. He'll probably get, 5 years for assault, if that much. So what do you think about that video, and how do you feel about what the disparity in charges and in sentencing?
I'll start with the most key word to me. Good old boy county. Not that it's Georgia. He said exactly what it is. Remember I said earlier, it depends on who shows up. The detectives get in there. Detectives do their case. They make a presentation to the district attorney, or a county attorney in their case, probably down there. That means whoever's doing the investigation is actually driving the boat. When you get to that county, is probably rural. It's probably extremely white. I don't know. I'm speculating. But when investigators, whether it's the state, local, federal level, I've always been taught, do your job. Whatever it is what it is. Like I said earlier, we're talking about the changing demographics. That's always played into our judicial system in this nation. If you come from the right demographics, they're going to do everything they can to downplay it. You come from the wrong demographics, which is where we sit in melanin based. We are always portrayed as the aggressors, violent, lazy, all those other things that are not true. And you got to remember, we don't go into law and don't go into law enforcement. I remember when everybody found out where I was going. Why are you doing that? I said, if I'm on the inside, I can at least try. If you're not on the inside, you're on the outside. What are you doing? You're just part of a statistic. I don't find this to be my personal opinion, again, adequate ruling, or should we say submission to the district attorney for prosecution. It should be, as it was noted in the video clip, this is an individual that has hatred in his heart. All he saw was a black male. Road rage, I got a gun. I'm going to take justice into my hands. And if it goes sideways, the odds are in my favor. Like, I hate to bring up the last one in Georgia where the young man was murdered while running, which was a travesty. They only got caught because they gave up the video. If they hadn't given them that video, they'd have got free. That young man would have died for no reason, just running through the neighborhood and minding his own business. America, as much as people try not to say it, is color struck, has been color struck, and will stay color struck for at least the next 20 years. This is an injustice. Hopefully the people will band together in that community and show that, hey, just like we did in the last one, wrong charges. Charge him for what he did. That wasn't road rage. Road rage is not emptying a magazine into another car. And if he was justified in what he did, why did he drive off? That's a simple assessment. If you believe you're justified in pulling the trigger, you don't run. If you realize that you did something wrong, you run. Simple mathematics to me. If I'm justified, let's say I am attacked by a dog or a human being, I discharge my firearm. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be standing right there when the police get there. Now, if I decide to shoot somebody because they looked at me, they bumped into me, you're probably going to run. I mean, but that's human nature, and how it's going to be equated by the investigative pool should be the same. If I get the gist, we say it should be the same, but in this country, we know it's based on melanin in your skin tone, unfortunately.
So I have two more questions for you. One, let's talk about, I'll go to the one pertaining to that case, whereby you said, and I agree, and most people probably agree, that it's based on who shows up or the DA in that county or that area. Is it true, though, that a lot of people think charges against the person can happen if a police officer witnesses it and they can arrest you and or charge you, or if somebody comes and beats me up at my house and then I go make a report and then they might get charged and then the DA files charges. But is it true that an individual, a resident, can petition the grand jury to file charges against somebody?
Using this case, it would. I mean, what you're talking about is a superseding indictment, and for a grand jury. Okay, so far what they're saying, those are the charges they're willing to put forward so far. Okay, you put those forward at first. Now, if there's enough community activism, and the individual that was the recipient of those 14 rounds, I don't believe he's been interviewed because they said he's been in the hospital, just shot in the back, so he's probably undergoing surgery to this day. He's probably still not on the interview list. But can they supersede what was put? Oh, yes, most definitely. They do it all the time. They may have started with those low brow charges, if you want to call them that. There's nothing says they can't be superseded by the investigative agency when enough social activism comes about, shall we say, to go back and say, well, we undercharge him. Let's go back, represent this case to a grand jury. And instead of him just getting road rage and reckless driving, suddenly you get attempted murder, mayhem, and a couple of other things. It just requires a concerted effort by the community to actually, I'm just going to go back to the last bad shooting I don't want to talk about. They got a free pass until the community started becoming very active and said, hold up, wait a minute. We got A, B, C, D, and the house of cards fell apart. So I think what you're asking is, can the community come together? And yes, they can. Legal precedents can be taken. You just have to have the wherewithal to fight the system. An individual doing it, no. Can the community get together and have appropriate legal guidance to go back and require law enforcement to actually do its job? Yes. But remember, we're talking about Georgia.
Yeah, but so earlier though, you said that most of the time when the Black community wants to make an issue of something, we're so in the streets, we're so, let's protest, let's show them how angry we are about what happened. And that can sometimes be detrimental to a case when, let's say, this guy, the person who was shot by the guy who shot 14 times, if he could get his family together and just go and legally handle it without all of the visceral protesting and everything. Do you think sometimes all of that can hurt instead of help?
Unfortunately, we have a mindset. I can't say beyond a shadow, but we have a tendency, as you noted, that we are more than happy to have a rally and say this is wrong, but don't want to sit down and get legal guidance to help us get through the system. We can protest all day long. We can stand in front of the police department, the mayor's office, and say we want to have a conversation. What you need is a legal body that is actually going to take your information and help you figure out how to file certain lawsuits. Most important one when dealing with police, if you, I'll just say with the police violating your rights, is Title 18, Section 242 and 241, which are colored law violations. But for this one, they still need legal guidance. There's always the civil courts. There's always civil court. That also goes back to you shoot somebody, you're always going to get sued. Civil courts. Now, civil courts have a whole different standard of finding someone guilty, but that's, requires us or whoever's been violated to get legal counsel and actually heed what they tell you. Not think about what you want. Here's an important word. Everybody says, I want justice. What is justice?
Justice looks different for different people.
Thank you. Now, some people, I want money. Some people, I want this person in jail. But then that also takes a whole bunch of different turns. You have to understand. People say, I want justice. Okay. If I was an attorney and I was asking, what is justice? Justice is different in every violation. Some of them, justice is you going to jail. Some of them, you lose your life, you get death row. Sometimes it's probation. I put that to anybody listening. Anytime you're involved in the system and you're been wronged, what is justice? What is justice? You have to have that answer in your mind before you sit down and start down that pathway. Well, I want justice. An attorney's going to go, well, what do you want? I want justice. What do you want? You have to have a fair and honest assessment of what is justice within the confines of the law. But yeah, that gentleman, I'll be following that one like everybody else to see how it turns out, because like I said, if he was justified in discharging his firearms 14 times, why did he run? It's not like the individual he was shooting at was shooting back. He was controlling the whole scenario when he pulled the trigger. But it'll be if they can have enough activism to get together and actually require the police department to give an honest assessment of what they saw and what transpired. Because you can't say the gentleman wasn't shot, because they took him to the hospital. They pulled a bullet out of his arm and a bullet out of his back. That went into evidence. I would ask questions. Why'd you shoot at him? He had a gun. He didn't have a gun. Why'd you shoot at him? Those are things that I would think an investigator would do. But yeah, it's going to require some activism to actually get them to do their JOB and give a fair account of justice, not just a brush over.
My last question, because I've held you way too long, and I appreciate
I've got time. It's fine.
Let's go back to what you were saying when people asked you, why are you getting involved with law enforcement? Why you want to be an agent? Do you think that, because that's a question, we see that so many things are all the disparities in law enforcement and the criminal justice system. Do you feel like you made a difference being an agent, and or did you address, how do you feel 30 years later? Do you feel like you made a difference?
I actually think I enjoyed my career, first I will say. I took the job, or it was something I wanted to do. I had a lot of mentors that were in law enforcement. One mentor, retired FBI agent just like me. I saw bad cops growing up, black, white. There wasn't any number ratio. I saw good white ones. I saw good black ones. I saw bad black. I saw bad whites. Bottom line is, like I said a little while ago, if you see a problem and you don't take an active measure to try and improve it, you can't complain about it. You can't bring me a problem. Hey, Dwayne, the grass needs to be cut. Okay, what's your solution? It needs to be cut. That goes back to justice. And I can say in my career, I don't know if I did. I hope I helped somebody. I won't know until one day some young kid I probably talked to in 1992 in LA runs into me and says, "Hey, I remember talking to you." I think I did my job to the best of my ability. I never dogpiled charges on anybody. I was taught by, yes, Bentley, I'm here, dog. I was taught by older guys of the last generation of the Hoover Rights. Do your job. You don't have to throw 30,000 charges on somebody. If somebody violated wire fraud, some FCC rules, you charge them with it. You don't have to throw everything at the table at them. Give them what they deserve. You don't have to dogpile. And I didn't see very much of that. Every now and then you would see somebody, why are you throwing it in there? Why? I said, this, so you talk to some people. It's a charge that's not going to get you anything. And I mean, if you're not in the game, you can't complain about the game. I'll put it like that. And a lot of my childhood, they asked, oh man, I was like, hold up, time out. I said, what are you doing? Are you going outside the 1 square mile we grew up in? What are you doing? Yeah, stop sneezing on me. Are you just continuing down the pathway from being in Baltimore City and not going anywhere? I wanted to do some stuff. And this was a venue. I think I did a decent job. I don't think there's anybody out there that says I mistreated them. I look back at my career constantly, retroflect. I'm sitting there, it's like, okay, did I mistreat anybody? No, not really. I don't think so. Now, I had some hard interviews where I actually played hardball with people, but it wasn't that many of them. It was just because they thought they were smarter than the average bear. And I had to prove to them that this is not the bear you want to fight with today. I have the information. I'm giving you the opportunity to be a man or a woman and fess up and help lighten your load. But if you want to go the hard case, I gave them the hard case. But that was far and few in between in my career as an agent. So I don't tell people to go into law enforcement. If you don't have a stomach for being looked down on, talked about, people trying to eat under your skin, don't go there. It's not worth it because everybody's going to give you grief. If you have a heart, I will say, some level of compassion, and you're trying to make sure that the next generation understands there are means to make things better, it's a good field. That's where I stand.
I appreciate you. And, I've only known you not even a month, but you seem like a pretty good guy and willing to share your knowledge and skills. And so I appreciate you doing that. And, if this, what I've learned about you in the less than a month is an indication of what you did over 30 years, I would say you probably can't find anyone who would say you did wrong by him.
Yeah, I mean, I'll admit I was probably hard on a couple of people, but like I said, they earned it. I was taught by guys, you don't have to do that crazy stuff on TV. If you have the facts, you have the wherewithal, all you have to do is sit down and talk to people. Most people get the hint very quickly. And like I said, I only had a handful. I don't think it was more than a handful of people that wanted to try me. You're like, oh, look, little light-skinned dude. Back when I had hair with curly hair, he got in the suit. He's soft-spoken. He walked in here. He didn't act stupid. Oh, he don't know what's going on. Okay, if that's what you think, don't let the smile fool you. There's a whole different side of me when you try my patience. And I have in the past, like I said, I wasn't very many people. I never abused anybody's rights. I would get under people's skin when I needed to. But other than that, I've tried to think about it. If I was on the other side of the table, what do I want? Do I want to be abused, or do I just want somebody to tell me, I got bad news for you, buddy. This is what I know. This is what I can prove. This is on you at this point. You can either take the easy way out, or you can take that. I'll give you one quick example. There's one gentleman, I got him 20 years. Early part of my career, buying crack cocaine. He was selling crack, had a gun in his pocket. A gun is an automatic 5 years. It was 15 years for the crack cocaine that he sold. I did everything I could to get him in the fold, to keep him from going to jail for 20 years. He decided to try me and my partner and was like, I don't know what you're talking about, and get out of my house. Okay, fine. I went back. I went to the grand jury, presented my case, got an arrest warrant, and I arrested him at his JOB. Took him to trial. He thought he was going to get off because he thought he was still playing with LAPD, and he forgot he was playing with the FBI. We're sitting in trial. He's found guilty. I looked at him, and I was like, I tried to tell you. And his attorney ran to, oh, my client wants to help. I said, your client can't do anything for us now. He's been arrested, indicted, and sentenced. He's got to go to jail for 20 years. And this is a young guy, had common sense, had a job, just happened to be playing in the crack cocaine field, was selling dope, and spent 20 years of his life in jail when he only had to do 5 because he couldn't do anything about the gun. And he wasn't mistreated. He just decided he wanted to play the game and roll the dice, and the dice were not in his favor. So, but yes, I think I was fair to everybody. I didn't maliciously go out to prove a point that, hey, I'm the big bad boogeyman and I can do whatever I want to. I don't believe in that. I believe in, hey, criminals are humans. Hey, I got plenty of childhood friends from Baltimore, got police records. We're still friends. I don't hold it against them. They don't hold my career against me. We understand each other. It's like, hey, as long as you don't do nothing around me, and it's not my business. I'm not going to ask you, and I'm not going to go searching for you as long as you aren't on my window. But yeah, try to be fair. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, thank you for the compliments. No, I did not miss those. Trust me. Thank you very much.
No problem. It's all genuine, and thanks again for your time. So I'm going to recruit you as my law enforcement expert for all of my future shows.
I can only speak about what I understand, but yes, I don't mind, talking on occasion. It's fine by me.
All righty, sir. So you have a great week, and I'll see you at the range, and we'll go from there. Thanks for all the information, and I'll keep in touch.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening and have a good week and safe travels.
All righty. Have a good one.
All right.
Thank you as well for being here. We appreciate you as well. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. That's at eurweb.com.